Happy 5th of November, 2025. It is a Wednesday, and that means that it is time for yet another video with me talking about things. Uh, what's going on? Let's see. New York is cooked. A strip steak. When I say cooked, it's very unusual because New York has cooked itself. So it's as if you put that strip steak in a bath of salt and let it cook itself. That's what happened. And what is the salt? What is the salt that cooked New York? I'll tell you. Decades of poisoning New Yorkers with misinformation and bad education. And what do you mean by that? Well, I mean, specifically, look at what they have received information-wise for about 30, 40 years already. They've been receiving an ever-increasing amount of information that is anti-New York, that is anti-American, that is anti-capitalist, that's anti-democracy, that is pro-socialism / communism, that is pro-undermining the United States, right? It's pro-undermining the values of America and New York. This whole fanciful propagandist, populist notion of free buses, rent-controlled apartments, the prices don't go up, and grocery stores that are run by the government as if it's going to lower the cost. I don't know what to tell you, New Yorkers. 51% of you apparently voted for this guy. More than voted for Cuomo and third place guy combined. I say the third place guy because can any of you outside of New York even name him? Do you even know who the third place guy was? The third place guy actually didn't even cost Cuomo the election. If you add up his votes with those of Cuomo, it still would not have been enough to actually beat Mamdouki. Mr. Zoran Mamdouki, Zoran Mamdani, Zoran Mamdani. Yeah, Mr. Mamdouki. He really pulled them over the Americans in New York. He really pulled a fast one on them. And it is amazing. And it's a great example. Not amazing in a good way, but amazing nonetheless. It is a good example of just how easily one can win an election in New York if one sets his or her mind to it and has the right accoutrement, shall we say. For example, if you have the right political backing of a certain patron country, you can achieve a lot. You can get very far, as evidenced by Mr. Mamdouki's win. And no, don't ask me to call him Mr. Mamdani. I know that's his last name. He's a public figure now. He can take the ridicule. Mayor Mamdani, as he will be known when he is sworn in, is likely to put in place a sweeping array of policies, maybe even laws if he can get them passed, that are going to go counter to the entire ethos of what it means to be a New Yorker for the past hundreds of years. He hates the capitalist system that built the city. Now, I get it. Capitalism highly regulated, actually. Highly regulated to favor corporatist owners over actual capitalists. If you don't know the difference between corporatists and capitalists, I invite you to learn about it. There is quite a difference. Corporatists believe that corporations, should own everything. And the bigger the corporation, the more they should own, and they should be allowed to squeeze out the little guys, not by honest competition, no, but by regulation that favors them. And that is not capitalism. Capitalism is all about the competition. The moment you remove that competition, you are no longer a capitalist. You are a regulated, rigged person playing games. And that is not okay in my book. I would hope it's not okay in yours. Offering free groceries or extremely low priced groceries at the grocery store sounds nice. Here's the problem. What do you do when you run out of groceries then? Who are you going to call when all the vendors are like, yeah, I'm not producing goods to bring to you anymore, or I'm not bringing you goods, I'm going to sell them somewhere else where they don't have this price controlled nonsense on food, because I can make more money selling it to another place and I'm not obliged to sell it to you in New York. What are you going to do when you get enough food in New York and it's imported to New York and New Yorkers from the import markets, whether you realize it or not? When you go buy your groceries at D'Agostino's or wherever, it's usually food that's been imported or has been brought into the city from elsewhere in the United States. It has been imported to the city from another state. That's still it's a domestic import, but it's still an import, right? I'm just pointing that out. Hello. Hello-y. I see all your emojis and stuff. Hi, it's good to see you guys. Hi, what's up? So yeah, New York is going to run into some problems just based on his socialist platform, which is bad enough for New Yorkers to have rejected him in the first place. And I know all the the young ones in New York are like, oh no, he's great, he's going to bring change. Listen, there is good change in the world and there's bad change in the world. Just because there's change on the way does not mean it's going to be good. Now, usually change statistically seems like a good idea, at least at first. But then what happens is in politics, when change gets implemented, very often it's not for the best, especially if that change has been brought about through a lot of misinformation, misleading information, and not exact, transparent honesty. Mamdouki is not exactly an honest person. He is a slimeball, in my opinion. The way he speaks, the way he acts. I know people think, oh, he's charming. Oh, he's such charisma. Whenever I hear that about a politician, I'm like immediately like, yeah, no, I get why you think that, but you're being suckered. And I don't care which politician it is, left or right or center. I've said that about every supposedly charming, charismatic politician. Even the ones that I think are okay, even though I think they're full of flaws. Like, I think they're doing a okay job, but they're still full of flaws. When the description about them is that they are very charismatic or something like that, to me, that is a negative thing. Because he comes off as a slime ball who's just fooling people. That's how he comes off to me. That's how I perceive him. That's how I perceive anybody who one of their main attributes is, oh, he's so charismatic. Even people who opposed him call him charismatic. He's not charismatic. That's not real charisma. Real charismatic is not something you have to state a person has. Real charisma is something a person has or not. So when I hear somebody say, "Oh, he's got real charisma," all I hear to myself is, he managed to fool these people too. To think that he's charming or whatever. He's just fooled them. That's all. And why do I say that? Well, because if you actually go back to his brief political career until now, what has he actually said and done? He said things that please people that hear him. And he's done nothing. He hasn't passed a single bill. He hasn't brought up a single bill in the New York State Assembly where he is serving as an assemblyman. Not one. He has done literally nothing to help legislate New York. Nothing. So what exactly makes him qualified to be the head chief executive of New York City? Now you can say, well, Trump doesn't have any political experience before 2015 and he became president. Right. Yeah, that's also a fair point. And even as a person who has said many nice things about Trump on the good things he's done, I would say he also pulled the wool over people's eyes. People who didn't know him, people who thought they knew him because they saw him on TV doing his You're Fired show or whatever it was called. That's evidence right there. And again, I'm not like some I hate Trump person, whatever. Like no, just I'm a reasonable, middle of the road person who sees things for what they are. And I see slick politicians for what they are. When I say slick, I mean like an oil slick. Yeah, Obama, Trump, Mamdouki. Right? These are people who know how to say certain things in certain ways to appeal to certain people in order to secure enough votes for them to win whatever election campaign they're focused on. And let's be clear, Mamdouki is financed by external money from places like Qatar. How do we know that? Well, look at his agenda. Look at the organization he started in college. If you don't know about that, and you're a New York voter, and the election has already passed, well, that's on you, man. That's on you. You had plenty of advance notice that this was coming, and yet you chose to ignore it. All this time. You had months and months to learn about this guy. It would have taken you 5 seconds. You know, sus stuff about Mamdouki. You could have Googled that. You know, what's bad about Mamdouki? Mamdani, whatever. You could have Googled that. Why should I not vote for Mamdani? What do people say against Mamdani? What do people who don't like Mamdani say? You could have asked Google or any machine that you use on the internet any of these questions. Why don't people like Mamdani? Why don't conservatives like Mamdani? Why don't capitalists like Mamdani? Why does Mamdani, talk badly about Israel? Why does he want to cut off ties with Israel? He said all these things he said publicly. You would have heard a million times over. Why does he want to defund the police? Why does he want to, arrest the prime minister of a foreign country that he has no authority to do? Right? The United States is not a member of the ICC. He can't even do it. So why would he say something like that? And why would New Yorkers, who are supposed to be, hey, sharp as a tack, hey, I'm New York in here, why are you New Yorkers so idiotic that you believed him? And they cheered him on when he said he would arrest Prime Minister Netanyahu if he showed up to speak at the UN. Which again, I remind you, he's not able to do. He has no authority to do that, to carry out an arrest warrant that he is not a signatory to. The state of New York is not a signatory to the ICC. It's not invited to be because it's not a country. The United States is not a signatory to the ICC, right? And Israel is not a signatory to the ICC. Therefore, the entire thing is a big fat joke and an offense to anybody who has a half a brain. But apparently New Yorkers don't have a half a brain anymore. Y'all are cooked. Y'all allowed a guy to cook you. You allowed yourselves to be cooked. You egg. You Obama. Yes, you are Obama. Okay. Michelle doesn't even have what? Something anymore? I don't know what that means. What is going to happen to New York now? What do you think is going to happen in New York now? New York just voted for... New York just voted for hummus. Can you have... What? I don't know what you mean. Can you have your steak medium rare? Yeah, New York. You can have your steak medium rare. Right now, your steak, though, is cooked through and through. Not medium rare. Oh, cute dog. Happy dog. New York has allowed itself to cook itself. It is absolutely crazy. Right? I don't think we've ever seen anything like it in New York. Closest thing we've seen to this. Now, I know we've had other really crazy far left politicians in America get elected here and there. But we're talking about the world's capital of capital. You know what the other world's capital of capital is? Right? Like equally as important in the world of finance and money? London. Guess what? Guess who they also elected as a mayor some years ago and who is still mayor? Yeah, Sadiq Khan. Look him up if you don't know who he is. Sadiq Khan is also basically an anti-capitalist socialist with similar views and educational backgrounds and cultural values and all that as Mr. Mamdouki. So he does not believe in the system that's raised him, or that's given him opportunity, rather. He wants to undermine the very system where he is an integral part of the political power structure. So London is cooked since years and has been getting worse. Now I understand. Now, by the way, notice I'm not focusing on a particular problem that a lot of people like to focus on in London. I'm not doing that in this video, right? Because that's not the point of this video. Because London is not cooked in that sense yet. And certainly the entire UK is not cooked in that sense yet. Right? And here I'm focusing on the policies that are going to affect people day to day, regardless of their issues with a foreign country and regardless of anything like race or religion, or cultures, diversity within the city. Okay? People in England, in London specifically, and people in New York, just like everywhere else, got to pay their rent, got to pay for their groceries, got to live. And they need reliable transportation, public transportation. And they need a whole lot more things. They need a safe place that has enough police to do the job. They need good trade relations with their existing trade partners. They need a good environment for business to continue growing and thriving and building the economy as opposed to doing the opposite. But no, in London and New York, literally the two leading capitals of capital in the world, have cooked themselves. And New York just did it last night, yesterday. And it's Qatar's money that did it. Qatar didn't just give money to Mamdouki himself directly, right? They're not stupid. They've been building up this puppet for decades. They've been miseducating people in America for decades. They convinced generations of Americans to hate America and the American way of life. And the proof of that is the white middle to upper class women in New York City, including many Jews, by the way, who he does not like, seeing that he's literally a supporter of Hamas, the terrorist organization, they voted for him. Not just the Jews, yeah, of course, they're tiny. Yes, there's a lot of Jews in New York, but they're not the majority of votes. Not even close. Bunch of white, middle class, upper West Side women voted for this guy, and have therefore threatened their own prosperity. If they think of now living in New York, just wait until this guy implements his plans. For the first couple of years, you might even think, oh, it's working nicely. Yeah, because you won't see the actual cost for the first couple of years. For the first 3 years, you won't see the cost. In fact, you won't see the cost pretty much until the 4 years are up on his election term. And when he comes up for re-election, it might be, you'll see it just before the election, but it'll be too late. He'll already have secured his re-election because he'll have already won the nomination. Once he secures that nomination again, he's all but a shoo-in to have the one. Because that's how it goes in New York. You win the nomination, you win the election. You lose the nomination, good luck. Not going to happen. Now, sure, there have been outliers in the history of elections of people who didn't win the Democratic nomination in New York. For example, Republicans, Giuliani, Bloomberg, right, who were mayors of New York not long ago, relatively New York. But think about the fact that New York, a city that was hit, one of the two targets on 9/11, just not even 25 years ago. Right? A little more than 24 years ago, New York got hit by the crazies that hit it. If I told you on 9/11 or 9/12 or 9/15 or a month after that or a year after that or 5 years after that, in 2025, New York's going to elect an anti-capitalist, anti-American socialist, by the way, happens to be Muslim and supports the very same kind of terrorist jihadis that committed the attacks on 9/11. Hamas, which was a known quantity back then too. You would have looked at me and said, "You're out of your mind, Yasha." And yeah, it would have seemed crazy. Another drug addict talking trash. What are you talking about? Who's the drug addict? Who is the drug addict talking trash, bro? Trump 2028. You think Mamdouki is a drug addict? I don't know about that. I don't think he's a drug addict. We need to be strong for New York. Yeah, well, no, New York needs to be strong for itself, but New York just voted for its own destruction. I mean, it's not going to be an overnight destruction, but this is how New York gets ruined. Give the guy 2 terms. It'll be hard to recognize New York compared to what it is today. It'll be real hard if he lasts 8 years in office. If he does last 8 years in office, you could see a very, very different New York. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily going to be apocalyptic and zombies in the streets kind of nonsense. It's not going to be like Escape from New York 1999 or whatever that movie was. But it might not be too different from that, let's be honest. It might not be too different from that, which is very sad. It might be something closer to that than many people realize or are willing to admit. Just for the sheer fact that he has all these anti-American policies, and he has all these anti-Israel policies, which are, by the way, very good for New York. New York makes a lot of money having good relationships with Israel. If you're not aware of that, learn a thing. The U.S. does a lot of work with Israel. New York does a lot of work with Israel, specifically the programs that he wants to cut, like ties between the universities. Sorry, but that's crazy. Why would you do that? By the way, anyone, my Movember beard, I have a bit of a head start, to be fair. I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna let it grow for Movember to bring awareness to the cause of Movember. If you're wondering why the beard looks like it does, it keeps on growing because Movember is here to bring attention to prostate cancer, right? Men's prostate cancer. It's the point of this, of the Mo on Movember. So yeah, New York has genuinely cut itself a raw deal. It has undermined its own interests. It has done things that will harm it in the not very distant future. And it is, in fact, sad to see. It is a heartbreaking thing because New York is an amazing, amazing city. And it never really should matter who is the mayor in the sense of like the spirit of the city, the amazing thing of the city, the culture, the lifestyle, the freedoms one enjoys there, the vibe that is so uniquely New York as well as very American. To see it now become a city that will be run by a guy who literally hates all of the things that makes America what it is, who has said it himself, who has said, I'm an anti-capitalist. I'm sorry, but you elected an anti-capitalist in the capital of capital. Do you understand how retarded that is, New York? Do you really? Because I'm not sure you do. Like, I'm really not sure you do. I think there's a very high probability you don't actually know what you did. No, I know technically you know, kinda. The law of large numbers, the wisdom of the masses. No, I get it. You think you know. But the fact that you think you know what you did, when clearly you made a big mistake, kind of says a lot about the state of your city and the state of education or miseducation. And you gotta remember again the demographics of who voted for him. He was not voted in by the working class, by and large. Yeah, Curtis Sliwa, in case you were watching earlier. Nice guy, I didn't have time to Google it. Curtis Sliwa, the head of the Republican Party ticket. You know, he and Mario Cuomo together, like I said, we're not able to get more votes than Mr. Mamdukes. Mr. Mamdukes managed to secure, like I said, around 51% of the votes as they've been counted so far. Most of the votes have obviously been counted. I think more than 90% of the votes have already been counted. And he's received more than 51% of the votes. So the projections are that he's going to win. And that was as of like a half hour ago. About a half hour ago? Yeah, a little bit of, yeah, basically a half hour ago. The fact that New York voted for a guy that has been pulling the wool over New Yorkers who have been miseducated for decades by Qatar and other sources, right? But specifically by Qatari influence peddling, which they do through media acquisitions, educational information, in literally by buying the curriculum of given, studies in various schools across America, including at top universities and across the Ivy Leagues and across other schools, NYU, GW, many other schools across America, right? They've been doing this for decades. If you think that hasn't poisoned the mind of New Yorkers, I don't know what to tell you. Try exposing yourself. Try being exposed to bad information. Try it for a day, and then a week, and then a month, and then a year. And tell me after a year if you have no noticeable difference in the way you see and think about things. Now, don't go too extreme. Do it with something innocuous so that when you see how ridiculous it is, how you change your position over a year, you'll notice, oh, yeah, that was dumb. I was easily manipulated by misinformation. Yep, it can happen to anyone that is not careful with the information they consume. It's not a new thing. It's not a new phenomenon. It's not a surprise to anyone that people can be manipulated and brainwashed. It's in fact the most normal thing you can say to me about how politics works. Because it is one of the most normal things that happens in politics. So, the next time you have an opportunity to vote for somebody, try to make sure that person actually aligns with your values. Don't just go with their populist agenda just because, oh, you saw it on TV or somebody in your demographic group that you ran into canvassing your neighborhood or standing outside of a public rally holding up a checkboard, a checklist, whatever board, to write down your name and info to put you on their mailing list. Make sure the candidate actually stands for your real values, what really matters to you, right? Because most of the time, you'll find they don't. They don't even come close to standing up for your values. In fact, they're usually quite against your values, right? They usually do things that you don't support. So why on earth should you support them? Ask yourself that. What is the point of voting for people who are literally voting against what you want? Can you think of a logical reason to do it? Because I can't. I know people want to give this guy the benefit of the doubt and say, oh, he's different, he's charming, he says all the right things, he's going to do all the things we want. No, he's not going to do all the things you want. It may appear to you that he's doing things you want. But if you live in New York and you think that your problem really is rent control, you don't get it. Okay? Now, I'm not one of these people who says, oh, there should be zero regulation and we should have children working in the mines. No, I don't believe we should have children working in the mines or in the factories making cell phones and sneakers, right? I don't think we should be China. But that's what he's encouraging, for lack of a better term. How's he doing that? Because he's encouraging more government control, which is never a good thing when it comes to productivity. And by the way, more corporatist control is also not the best way. Yeah? You have to have a balance, and that balance needs to be honest and real. You have to let people who are actually interested in growing economies through capitalism run the country or the city with actual capitalism. Which, yes, it can have some minor bits here and there of regulation to keep things fair on an opportunity level and to keep things safe on a work level for the labor force. But you can't just overregulate the heck out of a system why things are falling through the floor. You knew exactly why things are falling through. You knew ahead of time. You've been warned. I'm warning you even now. I'm telling you, if you're in New York right now, prepare for the worst. It's not going to be the actual worst, but prepare for it so that it doesn't hit you badly, which it will for most people. Now, what does that mean? It will hit them badly. Does that mean everyone in New York's going to lose their job? No, not everyone in New York's going to lose their job. Of course not. But there will definitely be an impact on employment. And very likely there will be more unemployment within 4 years in New York. And if he wins an election again in 4 years, there will be more unemployment in New York, right? He's not bringing the power of jobs to New York. He's getting rid of jobs, literally. He's going to actually shut down grocery stores that are privately owned in favor of centralized government-owned shops. What do you think that's going to do for the employment market? Look at the Soviet Union. How's that work out for them? Did that create more jobs for them? Did it? Of course not. Why did the people in the Soviet Union get rid of that system? Because they were fed up with how badly it was. How badly it ruined their lives. That's why. Right? Even the leaders recognized, oh, we can't continue to run the show like this because we have nothing left and we have no way to pay for any of our crazy ideas. So we better ship up or ship out. And in the end, they shipped out. They were hoisted by their own petard. Gorbachev got rid of the Soviet Union and gave the people of Russia back to Russia and liberated the people of the Soviet Union to have their own states once again and not be part of the Soviet Union, because the Soviet Union collapsed under its own weight of being exactly what Mamdouki is trying to do to New York. Centralized grocery stores, rent-controlled apartments, free transportation, yada, yada, yada. Oh, by the way, also anti-Israel policies. Who do you think started the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, terrorist group led by Yasser Arafat? It was the KGB. If you're not familiar with that, search for it. I've done plenty of videos about it on my channel. You can look it up. By the way, like and subscribe if you haven't already done that. It's over for New York City. Those people are idiots. Well, yeah, sure. Yeah, congratulations to Mr. Mamdouki. Sure. I wouldn't say that all New Yorkers are trash, because clearly nearly half the voters did not vote for him. They voted against him. They voted for Cuomo or Sliwa. But the extra 2%, 3% that voted for Mamdouki, yeah, I mean, the other half, basically, of New York, and slightly more than half of the voters who voted for Mamdouki, yeah, they made a big mistake. They are, in my opinion, not the brightest intellectual bunch that there is. Right? They made a big mistake. No doubt about it. And again, they made that mistake because they've been brainwashed. They've been brainwashed for years and decades. Not 1 or 2 years. Many years. Decades, literally. You know, I remember being in college in the early 90s and seeing this outside influence from places like Gulf states. Now, I'm all for having wonderful relations with Gulf states and all that. You know, great, we can do business and all that. But the truth is, they're not exactly bastions of freedom and democracy, okay? Whatever you want to say about them, they're not that. They're not helping to make labor a more equitable experience in their countries. They don't exactly strive. I mean, I know you can say, well, the labor laws have improved a lot. Great, they've improved a lot, but they're still crap compared to what they ought to be. Okay? Well, it takes time to do these things. No, it doesn't take time. It takes the decision. It takes the courage and the will to do the right thing. And they don't have that yet. I know there's wonderful people there. I have friends who live in those places. But their country leaders don't have the courage yet to do the right thing, because they're afraid of the politics internally of their country, because they are afraid of doing the right thing. They don't have the courage, like I just said. So I've seen this influence peddling in real time, up front and personal, since way back in the early 90s, like from 1990, literally, and on. And it was going on already for some years before that, and I knew about that, but I actually saw it, live in person at the school I went to, and I understood very clearly. Oh, okay, this is the way forward. This is our new challenge: is battling political correctness, which was the thing at the time. It was basically the woke, the woke agenda, but back in like 1990, political correctness. It's the same crap, by the way. It's no different. It's just that now it's more extreme. That's the only difference. It's the same. I mean, it's an evolution, right, of the PC crowd. And what we have coming out of Qatar, which is actually extremely conservative, but aligns itself politically with these nonsensical clowns that are extreme left-wingers out of convenience, right? Because they think that somehow that's going to help them to join forces and win elections. And guess what? It does. So why? Because you have the useful idiots of the extreme left helping the extremely conservative, also anti-socialist, anti-capitalist, anti-American, pro-jihadi people, which he is, and then those people take over. And guess who are the first victims when those people actually take over? Guess who the extremely conservative people that get in power will execute first when they have the opportunity? Look at the government of Iran, right? The Islamic Republic of Iran. What did they do when they got in power? Do you remember? I can tell you. They lined up and executed over a long period of time too. And they did it quickly. They started quickly, but it took them a while to get through everybody. They lined up and executed everyone that supported them that was a liberal. Students, activists, educators, anyone that was not extremely conservative like them, they lined them up and executed them. No reason except to cause fear in the hearts of everyone else. To say, look, this is what we do to our allies. Now imagine what we're going to do to you. And that's how they built their tyranny over the past 45 years. By scaring the living daylights out of the people of Iran. Has it worked? Well, they're still in power 45 years later. Oh, but it's a democracy. They have elections. If you think Iran is a democracy and has free and fair elections, you're on crack. That's a technical term. It is a dictatorship. And anyone who doesn't understand that needs to have their head checked. It is absolutely a brutal dictatorship. It is not a democracy. It doesn't matter if people go to polls and 98% of them vote for the same leader or a different, whoever the chosen leader is, right? The outcome is known in advance. Right? Everyone knows who is going to be the leader, because if you don't vote for that leader, guess what? You're not going to be voting another time either. Right? Now, sometimes what they'll do is they'll have a different candidate from a different party who is allowed to run in order to give the appearance of opposition. And up to 1% or 2% or 3% of the people are allowed to vote for that person. No problem. Those people know who they are. They know that they're allowed to vote for the opposition candidates. And they do so dutifully, because if they don't vote for the opposition candidates, they'll also get in trouble. Like if that particular subset of people, they don't have the real freedom to vote for them. You might think they do. And people in Iran might even tell you, no, we absolutely have the freedom. They don't. If people in Iran have told you that, talk to more people in Iran. I've talked to a lot of people in Iran. And yes, some of them tell me, no, we have the freedom to vote for whoever we want to. Oh yeah, then how'd you get 98% to vote for the guy who's literally oppressing the hell out of you and killing women for not wearing a hijab correctly? You're going to tell me if those are your values, that you would want such a leader? Well, then you deserve what you have if 98% of you voted for him. But we know those are not your values. We know that the people of Iran are in fact oppressed and are in fact not allowed to vote according to their heart's desire. And that those that are allowed to vote for the opposition do so basically under order of the system, saying, yeah, look, we need a little bit of opposition so we can make it seem like a legitimate election. And that's exactly what happens. So I don't know how else to tell you that other than to say that's what it is. Like it's not a very complicated thing to understand if you know anything about geopolitics. And if you don't know anything about geopolitics, well, you're in the right place to learn because it just so happens I know a thing or two about that stuff. I've been working in this field, among other things. Been doing this kind of information, creating this kind of information, writing books about this stuff, and articles and journals and all kinds of things for decades and decades. So yes, I don't know everything. Nobody does. But I know more than a tiny bit. Like I say, I may even know a thing or two. So I highly recommend that if you are a New Yorker, you wake up. Because now you've got several years of severe reality to deal with. And my heart bleeds for you, New York. It really does. You're a city that I love. To me, I was born not in New York, but I love New York so much. It's kind of like a second home to me, or maybe a third home or a fourth home. But it's a very important place. It holds permanently a very special place in my heart. It's definitely one of my favorite cities on the planet. You know, maybe my favorite city in the United States. Probably it is. And certainly is the home to my favorite sports team in professional sports. Not that I'm a big professional sports guy these days, but I certainly do like the Yankees, for example. That's right. I know you Mets fans must hate me now. Whatever. I really like so many things about New York: the music, the culture, the life, the food, the people, the architecture. And yes, really the architecture. I think it's amazing. So many incredible things to see and do. So many interesting curiosities to discover. But now you've gone and selected a guy who quite literally hates everything about your own city. And now he's going to be your dear leader. That is just, honestly, some of the craziest ass information that you could tell me. But it's real. And it's really happening right here in 2025. Nothing fake about that. By the way, shout out to somebody who I have a mixed take about, but I'll still give him props for doing it because he was one of the key guys who really helped this happen, whether he realizes it or not. And you can say, well, that's just one thing. How that's not relevant. No, but sure, it didn't win the election, but it definitely helped build up the image of Mamdouki earlier on during his campaign. If you've ever seen those funny clips taken on the subways of New York, where this guy sits down and has like short conversations or conversations with people that are edited down into YouTube Shorts, and sometimes he makes longer videos out of them. They're called like hot takes or something like that, or New York hot takes, or I forget the name. But that dude, this like Egyptian American dude. Sorry, I forgot your name. But he did a great job of fluffing that guy when he was a candidate that fewer people had known about, right, when he was just starting to get some momentum. So he had him on a subway thing and did a subway take with him and made him seem really relatable. God, I hate that word. It's just stupid. But it's a necessary thing in politics if you want to win. Because, again, undereducated voters And again, the working class in this case in New York were not the undereducated or the misinformed. They were the ones who voted to save New York from this disaster. They were the ones who voted for, hey, at least let's keep the status quo going until we can maybe get a better candidate, instead of voting for this radical guy who's going to break the entire system and not in a good way. And he's going to do it slowly, like poison, like a chemotherapy drip, so you don't notice the effect of it. And unlike in chemo where they take the poison out eventually, he's just going to let the poison keep poisoning the patient until the patient is too weak to actually even pull out the poison infusion and is going to just die, incapable of resisting the poison infusion. That's what's going to happen if he doesn't get stopped within the next 48 years. Now, some of you have said, well, surely this guy is going to get thrown out of office. How are you going to throw him out of office exactly? I understand he's sleazy. He's a slimeball. He's just, very scummy. Very scummy. He's that, used car salesman vibe all the way. He's very Trumpian in that sense. And you can like Trump all you want. I don't care. It's fine with me. But I'm saying he's got that vibe also of being a used car salesman. If Trump wasn't a real estate agent or a real estate developer, he'd be a used car salesman. So he has a natural affinity for it. Or he actually would be probably one of the funniest stand-up comedians. You think about it. He's got a knack for that too. Maybe not everybody finds his comedy funny, and maybe his comedy wouldn't be as funny if he wasn't a public figure. A lot of it has to do with who he is and his background and his story and all that. That's true. But he still has a knack for comedy. I think he could cut it as a comedian if he ever wanted to do that. But this Mamdouki guy, he's worse. He's definitely worse. Right? Now, granted, he's not the president of the United States, but he is mayor of the capital of capital. He's mayor of Wall Street. He's mayor of New York, the Big Apple, where the money is made. Literally where the world's currency reserve is pegged. Where the gold that secures the relations that the United States has with the rest of the world and the power that the United States has is based. Right? In case you didn't know, right? The U.S. dollar, which is not officially pegged to the gold standard, right? The U.S. dollar is run mostly in terms of how much is printed, it's distributed, and to whom it's distributed. It's run by the Federal Reserve, a private corporation set up with a fancy name to sound like a government thing. It's not. It's a private corporation of banks, that own it. Guess what? The Federal Reserve Bank of New York is basically in charge of the actual Federal Reserve. And the guy in Washington, D.C., whoever is the chairman or the gal, doesn't matter, whoever's in charge of the actual Federal Reserve in D.C. is really just a secretary or a spokesperson for whatever the New York Federal Reserve says. Like, they run the show. Anybody who doesn't understand that, learn a thing about how money works in America and in the world. So Mamdouki is now the head of literally money. And he doesn't like it. That's the problem. By the way, he's also a wealthy, like a Nepo baby. Yeah. So he has never lived a hard day in his life. And yet he's going to pretend like he relates to the working class who did not vote for him, while espousing middle class and upper class values that middle class and upper class people do not live by. They just preach those values to other people while living in their very different lives than the values they preach to people with far less opportunity and access to things and resources, right, than them. The white wine drinking women of the Upper West Side. And yes, I am pointing a finger at you ladies, because you voted for this guy, by and large. it is you who is to blame. Not solely, not entirely, but it is you who is to blame for getting this guy into power. You are in a not insignificant demographic. And you can be drunk and angry all you want. That's not going to fix your problems. Voting for a guy who you might be secretly attracted to while you're married to your rather normal distribution husband or seeking one, you voted against your own interests. You pulled a classic mistake that a lot of idiots did. Unfortunately for you, and unfortunately for your loved ones who live in New York, and your friends who live in New York, and your colleagues who live in New York. You voted for a guy who is determined to undermine everything you hold dear. You might not believe that because you heard him say a nice thing at a speech. Oh, he gave such a great speech. Yeah, did you look at his actual policies? Right? I understand. I am not coming at this from the angle of, oh, he's a Muslim and therefore you can't vote for him. No, I'm not saying that. Vote for the guy if you like his policies and if you think he's genuine about what he's saying. But you can't watch, excuse me, you can't watch any of Mamdouki's speeches during his election campaign and tell me you honestly believe that he was being honest with you about what he said. You can't listen to him waffle, go back and forth on various policies and tell me he's being genuine with you. He didn't just do it on one or two issues. He did it on a number of things. If you're in New York and you don't know what that means, you haven't been paying attention. Because he very clearly has been anti-New York, anti-America, also anti-Israel, which again, it shouldn't really matter much what the mayor has to say about that, but it does when it's the mayor of New York, which happens to have the second largest Jewish population of any city in the world, outside of Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. So, certainly New York is the largest concentration of Jews, Portchester word, has the largest number of Jews, more than any other city in the world outside of Israel. That's for sure. Right? In Israel, you got Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, which equally have, fairly large numbers of Jewish people, compared to the number of Jewish people that exist in the world. And it is very concerning, frankly, for Jews that a mayor who is so virulently anti-Jewish is now the mayor of New York. But again, if that's your trip, New York, knock yourself out. I personally am concerned for Jewish people living in New York now, which is not a thing I thought I would ever have to say, that the mayor of New York is a reason for me to be concerned about the safety of Jews in New York. Like, not just in a single, bad event, like it happened and it has happened in the past. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go look it up. Things happened in New York. There were some clashes between some Jews and some other people throughout New York history. It's happened more than once. If you don't know about it, you're either not from New York and you're astroturfing the city, you're occupying it, you're an import, and you haven't cared enough about it to learn about it, right? Like I came to New York after I was born. I wasn't born in New York, but while I lived there, even as a young kid, I bothered to learn the heck out of it because I wanted to, be as much a part of it as I could. And then we had to leave. But while I was there, I was every bit a New Yorker, and I learned as much as I could about the place, and I absolutely loved it. But for adults who have the right to vote, who have the ability to learn things, who have access to resources, who have information unlimited in the palm of your hand, for you to not know who you voted for, to not really know who you voted for, shame. Shame on you. Again, I don't blame all New Yorkers. Again, almost half of them did not vote for him. Almost half the voters did not vote for him. He only won by a few points overall, like compared to, if you add up the other candidates, right? If Curtis Sliwa had pulled out, again, Cuomo still would not have won. He would have lost by a few points if all of Sliwa's votes had gone to Cuomo, which presumably most of them, if not all of them, would have. Or some people would have just stayed out of the race. But still, the votes for Sliwa that would have gone anywhere would have obviously gone to Cuomo, if anything, because what are they going to do? Go from Sliwa to Mamdouki? That wouldn't make much sense. But Mamdouki did win. So, sure, congratulations to him for winning. Let's hope he doesn't begin to destroy the city one step at a time. Again, it's not going to happen overnight. Whenever people have that kind of fear mongering, I'm always like, no, temper your hyper hysteria. He's not going to just immediately cause the city to go over, crazy, because then they'll just bust him. As I was saying, like, how are they going to get this guy out? We know he's a sleazeball, but they need to get him with evidence. You can't just throw him out with nothing. So they need to actually find something on the guy that'll be reason to keep him out of office or to kick him out of office, right? It's kind of an impeachment scandal, or something where there's such a level of corruption that he can be brought on trial for that or something, and forced to resign, and who knows what. The thing is, he knows that, and he's kind of young still, young enough that he may not yet be fully corrupted. I know he's corrupt, yes, but he may not be fully corrupted to the point where he will do incredibly stupid things to get more of that juicy corruption grift. Like, he's still working on it. It might take him some decades to master that skill, even though he's obviously being helped along the way by the various people and organizations that are helping him. But he may be in a position where it may be harder to catch him than some other people who have been in similar positions in the past, mayors of other towns, etc., who are often quite easy to catch when it comes to corrupt stuff. Right? He may be a little bit harder to peg. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but he may be harder to peg. Am I still optimistic that he will get pegged? Yeah, I'm still optimistic overall. Why not? Any reason not to be? I don't think so. I think it's just as valid to expect that he will fail as anybody else. But let's be real. He also has a very good chance of not getting busted. Consider how many politicians are corrupt and get away with it. Consider how many politicians you never even hear about their corruption, even though you're damn sure they are corrupt. And now that he is actually going to be the mayor, he has access to a lot more defense resources than he ever had before. He has access to propaganda resources that he never had before. He has quite a lot of power now. Yes, he's just the mayor of one city in one state. I get it. But that one city in that one state, again, happens to be the capital of capital. So if you really think this makes no difference to the world at large, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. He is not a good guy. And New York, if you're not careful, he's going to hurt you. I know I've been going on about this for a while now, but that's because I care deeply about New York. I care deeply about New Yorkers. I want the people of New York to be a thriving, happy, wonderful people. I want the city to be a thriving, wonderful, happy place. Sure, there'll always be problems in New York. It's a huge metropolis. But that doesn't mean that the general health of the city isn't good. Generally speaking, New York is a great city. And may it be so for many, many, many more years, decades, and centuries. But right now, Houston, we have a problem. Or New York, we have a problem. And the problem is that your steak is cooked. What did you say here? What are people writing here? Poland? What? Hello, sir. Have you had dinner? What? Israel, Poland, Russia. Where are you? I'm in Israel, like I said before. Have fun with Sharia law, ladies. Exactly. I mean, it's sad, but true. New York just voted for Hamas. Yeah, right. Yep. Where is this at? Again, I am in Israel. I used to live in New York. I have opinions about New York. It doesn't matter if I live in a place or not. I still have opinions about it. It doesn't mean I'm going to say, oh, the people of New York should do this or should do that. I am pointing out my analysis of the situation based on my experience and what I do know about New York and my experience living there and my experience working there and every other thing that's relevant and my knowledge about the kind of person that Mamdouki is and the kind of policies he holds and wants to put forth. You know, look at Cuba. You don't even have to look as far as the Soviet Union, which is, of course, an enormous example that if you ignore, you're kind of dumb. Look at Cuba, right next to the United States. How's that free stuff working out for them? Free food. Yeah, is that working out well? Most of them are very, very hungry people. Free transportation. They haven't, have you seen Cuba? They haven't had like new cars in who knows how long. Right? Their pride and joy are the cars that people keep running since like the 1930s and 40s and 50s. It's sad. Look at rent control in Cuba. How's that working out for them? People in Cuba have some of the most rent controlled prices in the world. They don't have full freedom of information. They don't have full ability to generate wealth. Everything is state controlled. You want to have nice things in Cuba? You're in the wrong place, right? Yeah, there's nice things in Cuba, but the average person can't really build any kind of capital success there, and therefore cannot acquire more new nice things. All the nice things that they still have, pretty much. Yeah, I know people make small handcrafts and whatever. Yay, lovely. Oh, isn't that cute? How quaint. All the real nice things people have there that have any asset value of any kind whatsoever, first of all, are from times long ago when the country was capitalist. Right? They haven't built any new amazing splendors of great architecture that is world famous. Name me one world famous architectural icon built during the time of Fidel Castro or his successor. Name me one. Name me one that is actually world famous, not just you happen to know it because you like Cuba or you have relations there or something. Name me one architectural icon that is globally, well, like internationally known. Like if I say the Eiffel Tower, you know Paris. If I say the Empire State Building, you know New York. Name me one thing that was built under Fidel Castro that is like, wow, that is legendary, iconic. The entire world knows. You can't name one because they didn't do it. Name me one radical invention that is world famous for being Cuban. Oh, but they have so many doctors. They're so well educated. Yeah, great. They have a lot of doctors, none of whom have actually contributed in Cuba to radical innovations that have saved the lives of people all around the world. It may have saved people in Cuba. They may have done a great job of improvising on doing things with low resources. Great, wonderful. That's not innovation. That's logistics management. Not the same thing. If you're not aware of that, go to logistics management school. Learn a thing. I mean, it's horrible. And this is what people voted for. Just a couple thousand miles away from Cuba. Just off of the south coast. Well, Cuba being just off of the south coast of the New York of the South, aka Florida. And really, the New York of the South kind of applies to somewhere between Miami and Boca, Tampa, that whole area. It's really sad. It's really sad what has happened in New York just now. But again, I think there is hope. I think a better day awaits. But for now, New Yorkers, you really got to dig in or get out if you're not willing to stick around for the ugly times ahead. Because while it may seem real pretty on the outside, once the package has been delivered, it's going to start to degrade. And over time, it's going to degrade increasingly. Like I said, it's going to look and smell sweet and lovely for about 2 to 3 years. In the 4th year, it's going to start to get, oh, this seems to be a problem. And then he's going to say, oh, no, we have a plan for this. This is all expected. Other politicians have done this all the time, too. That would convince enough people, oh, no, this is fine. This is to be expected. Of course, there's going to be bumps in the road. And they're going to vote for him again. And then it's going to get worse. Tony Montana. Yeah, I know Tony Montana. You know Tony Montana? Or are you Tony Montana? Is this your YouTube, bro? Who's a racist? Let's just go Mamdani, one for the people. Okay, if you love Mamdani, then, good for you. Have I ever had dinner? No, I've never eaten. Ever. He brought literacy lower than 5%. In Cuba, yeah, exactly. Cuba ruined literacy. Yeah, no, you could say, oh, he brought literacy lower than 5%, like illiteracy. Wonderful. Well, you spelled that incorrectly. He brought literacy lower than 5%. So your literacy is so bad you can't even say that in Cuba, Fidel Castro's communist agenda reduced illiteracy to lower than 5%, which, sure, wonderful, great. They're all literate and poor because they don't have freedom to do things with their literacy. Yay. So they can all read about how much they're suffering under the system imposed upon them. Fantastic. Doesn't that make life worthwhile? These traders are crying like little bitches already. What traders? Mamdouki is not... I never said he's a traitor. He might be. I never said that. Traders like this guy are the enemy and need to be taught. I don't know who this guy is. Cuba sent medical personnel, doctors, to help other countries at no cost to them. Yes, that's called propaganda, brother. And it's good that they do that. And my hat's off to them. We do that in Israel too, and many other countries do that. Right? That's called propaganda. That's called public relations. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're doing a good thing. And sending medical professionals to help other people is wonderful. That's not an innovation. That's not a remarkable achievement. Okay, that's not. If you think it is, you have very low expectations. He also improved the lives of rural Cuban farmers. No, he did not improve the lives of rural Cuban farmers. Go ask them how they're doing today. Yeah, you can say, sure, compared to the worst days of the dictator that Fidel Castro replaced, yeah, they're a little bit better now than they were then. But they're not significantly better at all. You are such a pawn. Who is such a pawn, Freedom? Okay. That's your opinion. But yeah, I'm American F Cuba. Okay. I didn't say F Cuba. I'm saying look at their system. Their system has not brought them the kind of success that was promised to them, which is the same exact kind of success that Mamdouki is promising, which is going to yield just as bad results if he stays in office long enough. Let's hope this inbred hasn't had any kids. I don't know what you mean. My Mamdouki or something? I asked AI and they told me so it has to be true. I don't think Mamdani has kids. I don't know. I haven't read anywhere that he has. I asked AI and they told me so it has to be true. I don't know. I don't know what you mean, Mr. Tahoe, but sure. I don't know what you asked AI. I mean, maybe you're pulling a bit of a joke. That's good. But let's be honest here. The situation in New York is not great. And again, if you voted for him and you're happy with him, congratulations. Wonderful. I'm happy for you. This is your big day of victory. I hope you celebrate it and have a wonderful time. I really do. And I hope, by the way, that I'm wrong. Yeah? Who else are you going to hear that say that in the world of politics and political commentating? I really sincerely hope that I'm wrong about this guy and that he is, in fact, truly going to be an amazing mayor and deliver to you guys an incredible future in New York. That's what I hope for. I really do. The problem is, historical evidence begs to the contrary. Evidence shows that people with the kind of agenda that he has are very likely to yield the kind of results that have been yielded in many other places. That is to say, it's not looking good for New York. Not looking good. Now, of course, New York is a large and powerful city with a lot of fairly successful people in business who have a lot of resources and a lot of political influence within the city. And they may very well be able to hold off the worst of his exiges during this time. They may very well be able to hold off his craziest plans for now. But if he wins re-election, it's going to be harder to do. So for the first 4 years, expect him to slide through a whole lot of slick-looking policies and regulations and changes here and there, ordinances that will make life appear to be like, oh, he's freshening up the gardens, cleaning up the sidewalks, giving us free groceries. And then notice when the first thing hits that things don't go the way you expected. And notice what the recovery is like from that thing. And then notice what the after effects are and how they will try to patch it up and patch it over. I don't want to say cover it up, but you get the idea. Consider how the city will manage through that situation. If the city manages through that situation in a way that is absolutely amazing and positive, wonderful, then great. It may very well be that he's an excellent mayor. But statistically, probably not going to happen. Anyway, that's it for now. Talk to you guys later. Peace.